This episode of the KrakCast is brought to you by our friends at BigDoor24.pl. It's a new service that not only matches expats with local property experts who speak their language, but it gives you cash-back discounts on successful credit applications. So go to BigDoor24.pl, that's BigDoor24.pl. Find out all the information you need to get the mortgage you want. Again, BigDoor24.pl. Make sure you use the special promo code KrakCast to get a great cash-back offer. And now, on with the show. So we're going into the second week, the end of the second week of May, guys, and it's still like 11, 12 degrees outside. What the hell's going on?
Is this the news?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
In a minute.
It was quite nice earlier today, just the way I like it, sunny and cool with the threat of rain.
Waiting for the sun, waiting for the heat. This is really disappointing. Middle of May, and it feels like it's like October or
once
something.
it comes, it's so hot, man. I do not want it to start, I hope.
Well, anyway, believe it or not, this is not the weather report. This is the KrakCast news, and we're back with everything you need to know about what's going on here in town. Let's start with something we talked about last week. Actually, we did a special episode on the subject of the Matura, the Polish high school leaving exam. And
we could have used, you know what we could have used last week? A juicy bomb threat kind of subplot to our whole piece about the Matura.
It's funny you should say that, Dave, because in fact, it turns out that on the day of the Matura, that a number of schools here in Krakow, more than 10 actually, in several, quite a lot nationwide, received bomb threats, mostly by email. And of course, the police and the emergency services have to react and evacuate the building and clear everybody out, and then make sure that the building is safe to re-enter, et cetera, et cetera. It pushed things back by a bit. As far as I know, no exams were canceled altogether. But what do you think about bombs as a method for getting out of taking an exam?
I want to know what's the lowest kind of level of communication you could bring a bomb threat down to, like a tweet, maybe could you threaten a bomb on Instagram, maybe? Would that be possible? Would anyone take it seriously enough?
You'd have to have followers, though, wouldn't you? In order
True enough.
Yeah.
That's complicated these days, complicated. Do you think if you're the one who sent the bomb threat in, shouldn't you go ahead and appear at the school for the test anyway? Wouldn't it look really suspicious if you were absent?
You're the only name on that list, yeah. I'm sure some people were genuinely sick now and are being investigated by the police for absolutely, nothing. But
sorry, but the expression "cui bono" for what good? I mean, you get the exam postponed. I mean, you're still going to have to. It doesn't really add up.
We should know most of these exams went ahead, and I can imagine, these exams matter to these kids. It's a hugely important test.
Bomb threats a very serious thing. Nothing funny about this.
Kind of distracting too if you're trying to remember your algebra and your geometry notes.
It's hard enough already, and it makes it more complicated when the police tell you have to get out of the building for sure. But I hope that whoever did this, I hope they get caught and punished severely. Again, nothing funny about this very serious thing. And as far as I know, thinking over the last few years, I don't recall
what would be
this
the
KrakCast making the news anyway.
What would be the KrakCast sentencing guidelines here? We issued sentencing guidelines for the air rifle bandit. I'm thinking 10 months in prison for this.
Well, let's assume, let's say whoever did this was one of the students supposed to take the exam, so they're 18 years old. Do you excuse their youthful ignorance and stupidity, or do you teach them a harsh lesson?
You send a very dangerous message to an 18-year-old if you let him away with a national headline creating hoax.
You have to make it. I mean, if you catch somebody, you make an example. It's hard on the poor kid if it's like, 10 months in jail just for a little harmless joke. But I mean, it puts the message across.
It's like it's the classic hacker arrest. He's just a kid in somebody's basement. It's like, yes, but he released the name of 1 million spies. So
actually, 10 months in jail and has to take the exam.
Well, how about
twice?
How about this as a punishment?
I hope there are not 1 million spies in the world.
You don't let them take the exam. Thus, technically, they never graduate from high school. Good luck in life with that, right? How about that as a punishment?
This is getting juicy now.
Yeah, this is getting serious. We don't let you take the exam. You didn't when you called in the bomb threat. You obviously didn't want to take it. Fine, we're not going to let you take it. Now you don't have a high school diploma. See ya.
What if you believe in kind of eye for an eye justice? Maybe he should be endlessly spammed with useless emails for the rest of his life. He'll never know.
You mean like everybody else on the planet?
No, but the government will introduce some kind of level, like where because they've all the authentic looking emails from the taxman, etc., and they'd all be in his case, just fake and stealing his passwords and stuff. What do you think?
Well,
And can I point out,
legs.
in this episode we did last week on the Matura, I referred to these statistics from the government that tell us that 95% of people pass the exam. And so if you're in that 5%, okay.
And we patiently explain why that didn't matter.
It totally matters. It totally matters. I know. You're all about the grade you get. It's not just pass fail. It's about getting a good grade. I get that.
But you ain't getting into a computer science degree with a pass.
Who do you think is more likely to email in this bomb threat? Somebody who's going to pass and has no chance, or somebody who's going to get a not the highest grade, but the next highest grade? In other words, the next lowest grade.
It could be.
Who's the most likely suspect for a bomb threat?
It's most likely a weirdo who usually threatens other people, but maybe his attention was brought to this because the skills have been in the news a lot lately. I don't know. A nut job, probably, John. Probably nothing to do with the student body of any of these skills.
Well, moving on.
If it's a student, I expect him to be scooped up quickly.
We'll see. Yeah, we'll keep you posted if we get any arrests on the subject of the email bomb threats on the Matura. Let's move on to a subject that's near and dear to our hearts here at the KrakCast, something we love talking about a lot. That's public transport. We are addicted to talking about trams and buses and road closures and things like that. As you know...
Would you say it's possible that there's a repository of knowledge larger than our back catalogue when it comes to the Krakow public transport infrastructure?
This is ground zero for the traffic situation.
What did we cover last week? The raise and the ticket prices finally come in?
Among other things, but we also mentioned, as we all know, that Krakowska is just a mess right now, and it's going to be a mess until the end of the year.
I've been trying not to think about this. I don't want to talk about this. The closing of Dietla.
Well, wait a second. Let's give the current status of messes here. Krakowska is a mess. Alea is reduced down to a single lane.
If you can explain this, you're a better man than me. Go ahead.
Karmelitska is still closed to trams. The whole west side of town is kind of paralyzed transportation-wise. And now, as if all that weren't bad enough, and if the situation weren't bad enough, add to that Dietla, which is a major traffic artery here in the center of town. Beginning on May 18th, it's going to be closed in stages. Going to be closed to both car traffic and tram traffic. And they expect normal service to resume at the early part of 2020. So even assuming that their schedule is, their forecast is accurate, that means the next 7-8 months with no trams or very limited trams and buses on Dietla. Again, with Krakowska already closed, how are we supposed to get around to this part of town?
An excellent question.
On foot.
Yes, yeah. Speaking as someone who is in the general, well, actually is right in the epicenter of all this kind of civic works. It's great that there's a lot less cars around from a personal point of view. It's obviously going to be a complete traffic nightmare. If the city government wanted to try and dissuade people from bringing cars into the centre of town, they're approaching it very effectively. Whether it's doing very much for the city's economy, I don't know. I mean, we had this, I can't even remember if we discussed this on air before, but I mean, I'm wondering whether the rollout of these electrical devices that we're going to talk about in more detail in a moment, distributing them all around the city for pedestrians to use to cover longer distances, whether it's all kind of tied in with, well, you're not going to be able to get around using anything else, so we might as well, offer you something.
I just can't credit the city council with that much forethought and joined up.
It's a stretch. It's a stretch.
Hey guys, as problematic as it is, and as many problems as it causes, is there an argument to be made in favor of kind of getting it all done at one time, even if it causes a total transportation nightmare all over the whole city?
I think so.
Is there a good side instead of staggering it one this year, another next year, etc.?
Because I mean, it's not just the tram tracks they're fixing. It's not just kind of adjustments to the general kind of, I don't know, like topology of the roads. It's also kind of infrastructure, cables, drains, water pipes.
Best be laying all of that shit now.
No. It's like kind of, well, yeah, this needs doing. This is going to need doing pretty soon. It's like, you know what? For this, we have to dig up the road a bit. For this, we have to dig up another bit of the road a bit. Like, do you know what? Maybe to just open it all up like a tin of anchovies and kind of get it all sorted out in one hit. And yes, it's going to be horrible for like a year more or less, but after that, then
typical Josh bringing common sense and logic into it. This is something that affects me personally. This is on my journey to work.
It must be serious now. It's about Dave's journey to work.
Obviously, I agree with all progress. Everything Josh just said is completely sensible. This needs to happen. It needs to happen yesterday. yesterday. The upgrade of the last trams, the last noisy, old, ridiculous trams are going to be replaced with the modern, sleeker, heavier, quieter trams. And I'm assuming there must be a reason why that corner has so many old trams on it at the moment, and they're all going to be replaced. So in a year's time, we'll have a glowing, shiny new junction.
Hey, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think let's just jump forward in time, and Dietla is finished and nice and new, and the tram line is great. Doesn't that leave Starowiczna as the last real traffic, or the last major traffic artery in need of renovation? Hasn't everything else been done?
Well, actually, Starowiczna even was kind of modestly renovated about 10 years ago, wasn't it? They rebuilt the whole junction where it joins Dietla, and
I think between Pocztówna and Dietla, on
and
the
all
other
the way
side
down
of
to
Dietla,
Miedova, it was resurfaced and new pavements. Yeah, because I was living on Starowiczna at the time. I was
right, of course it was.
Cognizant of this.
But then further on towards the bridge, it already looks a bit dodgy. I mean, the condition of the tracks is kind of.
I always thought it was cognizant. I trust you way more than me. The thing about the trams in this part of the city...
You might be right, actually.
The trams in this part of the city make an awful lot of noise.
Yeah.
And it feels like the ground is, not as well laid as in other parts of the city. I have absolutely no doubt this is a vital infrastructure upgrade. It has to happen. But let's be clear on this. It's a real pain in my arse.
Huge pain.
Well, I know. I mean, Dave, particularly you as a classical music fan. I mean, I mean, one of the absolute bête noire. Yeah. A bête. Yeah, some excellent finish. You go to the Philharmonia for a nice kind of classical concert, and there is a corner which trams trundle around regularly, and it shakes the very foundations of the building.
Bashed over it. Yeah.
So it interrupts the music a little bit.
It's kind of, well, I suppose it kind of dissuades people from making kind of pirated live recordings in there.
I don't know which was first, the concert hall or the tram tracks, but somebody had a bad planning. Somebody either put the concert hall next to tram tracks.
Because
that's a bloody good question. I'm going to guess the concert hall.
But I reckon it's not by March.
Yeah.
Well, the trams have to go that way.
We'll put an intern on that one.
You're talking about the Philharmonia on Zvezniecka.
Yeah. And,
the trams have to go that way. So they probably knew they were ruining the performances when they put the tram tracks in, but they have to go that way.
One of our team of Trustafarian researchers, Josh.
Yeah.
Now, another subject that we've talked about before on the KrakCast, and another subject that's turning into a disaster/nightmare for everybody involved. That is the garbage apocalypse, following from the new rules that came into effect on April 1st, I guess it was April Fool's Day, that require us all to separate our garbage into like 19 different colored containers. The results are in, and it's an unqualified disaster. Complaints from everybody involved. Residents either don't have the proper containers to segment their trash, to put it into different, again, color-coded. We went over what the different colors mean. I forgot. Anyway, you know what I mean. This color for metal, this color for glass, this color for biodegradable stuff. They either don't have the proper containers, or the residents of the building are not doing it properly, or I've seen more than one comment on the City of Krakow Facebook page that says they personally witness the garbage truck picking everything up and dumping it into the same place in the, they pick up all these different containers, dump it into the same place. So what's the point of going through the charade of dividing our garbage? Josh?
Well, I bow to no one in my kind of contempt for the whole idea of segregating and recycling my arse. Rubbish. But I will say in this building that, in fact, the different coloured bins go out on the pavement on different days, and there are different trucks. So what you say may very well be true, but it's not true for the building that I live in.
Doesn't mean it's landfilled in a different...
it could all end up in the same
Quick question. Let's say, the container for glass is not going to be used as much as the container for general garbage, whatever that's called.
You're kidding me. This is Poland.
Even here. So one is overflowing while the one next to it is half full, if that.
Well, I tell you, in this... because this
building, what's going to happen? People are going to put their garbage in the one that's not full.
This building has at least a couple of holiday-let apartments in it.
Like Airbnb kind of thing.
And they're sort of, predominantly kind of English-speaking people, from what I can gather, when you bump into people in the corridor. And, of course, all the bins are helpfully labelled in Polish, and, of course, so many Polish words are very, very similar to their English equivalent.
Yeah, like
glass, szkło, plastic, Forgivo, it's kind of, so, and there's the one that says like mixed rubbish, and that's got the most stuff in it, and people are just putting their bags in there. I mean, I'll tell you an interesting thing. As much as I really deeply resent this whole stupid, cretinous idea of separating rubbish just for ticking some virtue signalling boxes, but since I have been segregating my rubbish, I can say on a personal level that the stuff that doesn't go into any of the separated things is easily the smallest of my. And I mean, I've not got bins. It's like carrier bags dotted around the kitchen floor, which is not very elegant. But the one that has the least in it is definitely doesn't go into any recycling category.
Yeah, and people should look back through our other episodes for more detailed explanations about why we have skepticism about this subject. One thing I'd like to know is that even in Germany, like the issue is this is what the trash companies will tell you, that we don't separate it correctly, and that's why it gets landfilled in the same thing. They try and bring it to their plants, and then they find all this stuff in it, and that has to be classified then as general waste. But what kills me is that like Germany's been trying to get this right for 20 years. They have like trash inspectors within apartment buildings, writing people tickets. And you know what? Even the Germans just can't be mitted with it. It's too much. It's just like, this is so much effort for so little gain. And like you say, Josh, it's mostly just box ticking, virtue signaling.
Good intentions, just impossible to implement, I think,
Well-run landfills, there's nothing wrong with them. It's crazy.
Let me throw this out there. I got a theory that kind of connects what we're talking about now with the garbage, with the previous subject about the trams and whatnot. There's when it comes to expenditures on public transport, they're always trying to build new tram lines and buses and whatnot, and maybe that money is taken away from constructing new roads and accommodating the growing number of cars, which seems to me the bad call. The number of cars on the road is skyrocketing. People want their own transportation, like it or not, good for the environment or not. That's what people want. And with the garbage, again, it sounds good in theory, but in fact, in the real world, people don't want to segment their garbage. It seems to me that when you get people in positions of authority, whether it's city government, national government, whatever, people are ideologically driven to implement their own personal agenda, no matter what, if it's going to work or not. I get the feeling here in Krakow, there are people in the decision-making positions in the city government. They like trams, and so they're going to push the tram solution, even if the people prefer to have their own cars. And the people who need more and better roads can just suffer and deal with it.
Where are you going to put these roads?
Okay, but there's no. Well,
where are the cars going to park when they come into town? I mean, that's the other.
It's not just town.
It's not just town. Something we all agreed on. We all agree on the plastic thing, and then you just added in a completely different whole.
No, it's the same thing. If you get people in certain key positions, they can drive public policy based on their personal preferences.
Nice sentence.
And they get like a crusader mentality, and what they want personally for society may or may not be what society wants or what's good for us. And so, if you get, again, in a certain position, you can kind of impose your views on public transport or trash collection on everybody.
I'm taking issue with the statement, people want more roads to drive into the city.
They do. They absolutely do.
All I'm asking is, I agree with what you're saying in the sense that public policy, of course, is driven by politicians. Like, yes, and there is a level of vote winning around. I want the Krakow Underground, for example, because I think it's a great public transport infrastructure idea, might say one politician. But my issue with what you're saying is there's nowhere to put extra roads in the centre of Krakow. I mean, it's a medieval city.
The centre of Krakow is not the only place.
Exactly,
it's a big city.
And there's an important issue here, which is, and this is true actually for all cities at different stages of development, which is that you get traffic that has no intention, does not want to go into the centre of the city. Yep. It wants to just bypass it.
Exactly.
And there's not, Krakow doesn't have it's okay going west, east, west, but going north,
it's
south
shocking, guys.
Go to nightmare.
Go to Opolska. If you don't know, Opolska is the road that goes in front of IKEA. The big, important road on the north side of town. And it is bumper to bumper, basically from 7 in the morning to 7 at night. But that's not the center of town. It's ridiculous.
They did a massissive upgrade on that part of town's road infrastructure.
Overpass over 29th of
in that part of town.
Street,
so you want the all-American solution: overpass over and overpass over and overpass over and overpass.
Something has to be done, and center of town is a special case for sure. But as Josh says, not everybody wants to or needs to drive to the center of town. And I just get the feeling that sometimes there are people on the city council or the regional council or whatever who say, we don't want to expand the road system because that'll encourage more people to drive their cars, and we don't want that.
Well,
And I hate that
Polska is an
mentality.
artery in and out of the city, and it was expanded massively in the last 10 years.
It wasn't
enough. Fair enough. But
Same with Zakopianka.
all that proves is an absolute iron rule of city planning. The bigger you make roads, the capacity always fills up with extra cars.
Absolutely, that's true too.
Yeah.
But again, I think
you can see that.
Well, look at the M25 around London, which is like a gigantic parking
destroys
space.
your argument for putting lots more roads into Krakow.
Well, yeah, it's going to expect the capacity is always going to go up no matter what. We shouldn't build new roads because the capacity is going to be taken up by new traffic. So what?
We should focus on public transport.
No, we shouldn't. We should focus on roads because people want to drive their own cars, and the statistics clearly show that.
Yes, I know, but there's only so far you can go with that. I mean, if you want to move millions of people around efficiently, the road, as you say, the road network has been expanded, it's been upgraded, and it's still not enough. Okay, so now if you want extra people coming into the city, it has to be done in a more efficient manner.
And with the garbage,
John, we could do your favourite, tunnels.
Oh, don't get me started.
Tunnels are too expensive, but they'd solve your problem, wouldn't they? Road tunnels instead of rail tunnels.
Bringing this back to garbage, which is where we started, kind of. I think there are people on the city council who want to do this because they think it's good for the environment, and that's it. They don't care if it doesn't work. They don't care if it's unworkable. It's just they have good intentions, and they make public policy based on their good intentions.
I don't think they even have good intentions. They can see that kind of care for the environment is very much part of the zeitgeist, and that it's a vote winner, especially as long as it doesn't hit people in their pockets too hard.
All right, I'm going to use that as a segue to our. You mentioned the care for the environment.
People don't tend to politicise something as complicated as transport as well, because even the most political projects have to be run through public feasibility studies, and there's incredible amounts of detail in that.
Speaking of cars and saving the environment, Dave, this week we learned that Prime Minister Morawiecki has some rather ambitious plans for encouraging electric car ownership in Poland.
Yes, the European elections are coming up, so all across Europe, politicians are realising they're nowhere near any of the targets they've set on emissions for the last 10 or 20 years. So to distract people from that, they're announcing bold new strategic visions and targets. In Ireland, Leo Varadkar announced that Ireland now has a climate emergency. And sorry, actually,
Stop raining.
Actually, I think Varadkar actually poured a bit of cold water on it and said we're having enough trouble meeting the targets as is. But someone in the Irish government declared a climate emergency today. The UK as well. We're the only two countries in the world that are having a climate emergency. Of course, both of our countries are doing very badly going towards the targets they've already set. And, it's just... Well,
actually, okay, this is maybe a little bit of a kind of minor diversion, but I think in the entire world, no country has done more to cut emissions and shift its burden towards renewables than the UK. The statistics are remarkable, which makes that whole kind of Extinction Rebellion gluing your face to the side of a double-decker bus kind of protest utterly laughable.
Bring this back to Poland, Dave.
Yes.
Tell everybody, in terms of goals, where Morawiecki wants the country to be, and more importantly, where we are now.
Poland has about 5,000 electric cars on the road. He wants to have 1 million by 2022 or something.
So 5,000 to 1 million in 3 or 4 years.
5 years.
This is isn't this electioneering?
Well, no, I think it's possible because Poles don't really like big, powerful, fast cars of German origin. Oh.
No, not at all.
Sorry, I'm getting a correction from our editorial.
Josh has pointed out a number of times on the show is that the switch to electric will be doubly difficult in Poland because there's a filtering down of the cars, the diesels that have been banned in Germany now that are coming onto the market as second-hand cars in Poland. Beautiful German-made automobiles that happen to be diesels are selling in massive quantities across the border. It's not going to be an easy switch to electric.
There's actually I'm going to, because I've got this whole electric car thing and renewables and blah 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 is a bit of a thing of mine, and something that never really gets looked at is the charging infrastructure. Now, it's okay if you've got 5,000 electric cars in the entire country and you've got maybe 4,000 charging points or whatever, and the burden on the grid is really negligible. But once you start getting up to serious quantities of electric vehicles, the charging needs. And, you can plug it into a regular household supply, but it's going to take...
95% of electric car users charge overnight at home. It's a rare emergency you need to do it when you're out.
But it works because there's so few of them. But when you have a substantial number of them, then the burden on the grid is going to be massive, which means more electricity needs to be generated.
And where does that electricity come from,
where
Josh?
does that electricity come from? It comes out of the air magically, I think.
What do we burn to make that electricity?
Yeah.
Even Elon Musk acknowledges that if you hit a magic wand today and turned every new car electric, it would take 25 years for the current stock that's not electric to go out of production. It's a long-term thing. I absolutely agree. We've talked about this a million times. We have to look at nuclear, at the big ways of generating massive amounts of energy that we're going to need. But we are getting more efficient. You're right. I mean, the overall picture in Western developed countries is that we are getting more efficient. Maybe not at the rates and the targets we've set ourselves, but there certainly has been, initiatives that have worked and are continuing to work. But
again, I mean, it's this version. It's like look at me. I'm a good person. I go to church every week. You can see me standing there in my suit singing the hymns. It proves that I'm a good person.
Another story on our very favorite subject of transportation. We talk about transportation a lot on the show.
Well, because it ties
It's very moving.
It ties into energy, and we love talking about energy.
So this is also something we mentioned last week, 2 weeks ago. The plague of electric scooters is in full swing here in Krakow. If you've been out and about in the last week or so, you've noticed them just sitting in random places. Probably more often than you see people zooming by you at 25 kilometers an hour on.
I've yet to see someone using one, actually.
Quite a few.
News is, after I set the collective noun challenge to our listeners to suggest names for Uber Eats drivers and not a single person responded, we now have another opportunity to engage.
Maybe you need to up the prizes for these competitions a little bit.
Our noun competition, because we now need a collective noun for a bunch of abandoned scooters, don't we?
There should be something for that.
Or do you have to be alive to
I've
have
seen
a
them in the
collective noun?
middle of the path in the planted on sidewalks, pavements everywhere. The law doesn't know what to do with it. I think you mentioned this before, Dave. The law doesn't know what to do with scooters that are just sitting there.
Well, that's why I had so many questions when we discussed this. I mean, it's the natural effect of not having a tidy place to lock it up is that they're going to be left all over the place. I mean, I was walking down to Rondo Jegojetska the other day and I saw like 4 of them just lying on top of each other in a very messy fashion. But
Scooter orgy.
Just stepped over them, kept walking.
Does it
like
seem
a brave
to me that,
Krakowian.
Or does it seem to you rather that I forgot the name of the company behind the scooters here in Krakow, but when Uber first started getting some traction, they just kind of parachuted into these markets and just said their attitude to the local government, national government was basically, what are you going to do about it? Their attitude was to just get their name out there, get people using the service, and deal with the blowback and deal with the legal issues later.
And now their $80 billion IPO has arrived.
And I think the scooter
Could it
people
all have been part of a plan, John?
The scooter people are
capitalism.
Are the same. They're just going to flood the cities with these scooters, deal with the legal challenges as they come, and just wear us down to the point where we just say, okay, fine, whatever, just use your scooters. I have enough.
I'll say one nice thing about them. I haven't jumped on one yet, but it looks like they're designed with a nice wide carriage for to be easily ridden.
Sounds like.
What are you laughing at?
It sounds like you are positively disposed towards the scooters.
No, I'm just trying to say I haven't actually tried one yet, and I have this bad feeling that I'm going to hop on one day and get to work quicker and going to go, these scooters are amazing. No.
As we mentioned before, the police don't know if the scooters can ride on the sidewalk, or do they treat them like a bicycle, or they have to ride in the street? Is it some other kind of transport? The current law, the current legal structure doesn't make allowances for something like electric scooters. This is one of those examples.
We got a lot of tight footpaths in Krakow.
Technology has just kind of outpaced the legal.
Like Dietla's a very tight footpath. I wouldn't be too amused.
Not very even though.
No, it wouldn't be great scooter riding territory either.
Josh, anything to add on the?
I do have the thing
scooters?
sometimes when I kind of, because my the front door to my building is like, flush onto the pavement, as it is the case with lots of these, old kamienices in Krakow. And you walk out your door and someone whizzes by in front of you, and you think, God, if I'd kind of stepped out like half a second earlier, I'd have been absolutely flattened, whether it's a bicycle or a scooter.
Yeah, Krakow's a little bit behind the curve. We've seen the deployment of these scooters in places like Barcelona, Amsterdam, and elsewhere. And the chaos that we talked about last time is just, the early adopters love it. Certain demographic loves it. The kids love it. Everybody else who's just trying to walk down the street on their way to work or just hates them. And they're unsightly. what's the service we have here in Poland that works on the same principle? You can, but with cars, it's
Traffic car.
Traffic car. Okay, the same idea, but at least cars, they have to, when they're not in use, they are where cars are supposed to go. On the street and various parking places.
I've seen many
hanging trees.
But
with the tram, with the scooters rather, it's literally anywhere. Literally
that's
anywhere.
the issue.
And that's the problem.
There's no like racks for them, There's no like the city bike scheme. You know where to get one. You know where to leave it off. It's neat, and tidy, it works. I mean, those Wavelo bikes now must be 10 years old. Like and they
no. It's because it was a previous scheme before, and the Velo thing is much newer. I think it's just in the last 2 years.
Interesting. You mentioned Wavelo. I wonder how they're going to kind of survive in a world where electric scooters are also available. Do you think the old school bikes have a chance against electric scooters?
It's going to be a tough battle, isn't it?
Interesting.
Is there a possible joke about peddling their wares or wearing their pedals?
There's a joke in there somewhere. I'm sure you'll find it.
Well, I'll work on that one, mate. Yeah.
But I guess there's always a market for old school bikes, but they don't have the cool, sexy appeal that electric scooters have. I don't know. We'll see how it goes, but I'm telling you, it's just a matter of time before the Rinnick is full of these things.
Scooter-opocalypse.
I can almost hear the pitch in the boardroom, some guy talking to a VC going, "We finally solved the last mile problem."
They were all sitting cross-legged, barefoot on sofas, kind of, or bean bags.
Solved the last mile problem. It's called an electric
clear air thinking.
And all those guys are going to make $1 billion a piece.
Well, that's
in
the
IPO,
big play, isn't it? That they're going to keep saying we solved the last mile problem. People can link up their public transport journey now, and they can get from the tram stop to their house more efficiently than they used to be able to. That makes people more likely to use public transport. Ergo, we haven't launched a company that's eventual aim is to go public. We've saved the world.
I think when we start to see widespread Babcha adoption of electric scooters,
it's really mainstream.
It does have a bit of potential for satire at the moment.
Elbows, and kind of.
You would like to think a Polish comedic TV show might be working on a funny.
For all we know, they might be, given how much.
Dave,
Polish
what do you think
TV
about the way people look? Is it a dignified way to get around the city on a scooter?
I don't look at them and go like they look really weird or anything. It's not when they're actually on the scooters. I actually haven't had any close calls with scooter riders, really, to be honest with you. It's just seeing them scattered around the place. As I said to you, I'm more fascinated about this than anything else. I'm not angry about it yet. I might develop anger.
You will.
I think we could see a situation like Dave's kind of like he's teetering on the brink here. He's gonna try them out one of these days, and then he could come back, with a completely different perspective on the whole thing, and then we could really have some arguments.
Know how injury prone I am. I think I'll say
that's true.
There's a reason I like walking.
We'll see.
I find trams a bit
can you use your phone in one hand while you're on the scooter?
Phone.
What did I say?
No, I've never seen anyone actually texting or anything.
Well, they're going to. Everybody does it everywhere now. Honestly, of course they're going to use their phones on the scooter.
Honestly, I think people have a bit too much respect for their own bones to text while they're on these things.
Never overestimate the human capacity for self-destruction.
True.
Last thing we're going to talk about before we get you out of here is I'm still having trouble believing this. This happened. This American or this U.S.-based e-commerce site. What was it called again? I'll pull it up in just a second. Anyway, they're selling a mini skirt. They were selling, before it was closed down, a mini skirt and some other items of clothing.
Cushions and a throw.
Cushions and a throw. With a graphic print from, wait for it, Auschwitz.
The gates of Auschwitz on a cushion.
The gates of Auschwitz on a mini skirt, among other things. Now, after some complaints from a number of people, that it was taken down. Where do we start on this? A miniskirt with Auschwitz, guys?
Is there some kind of pun that I can't get about work making you free? Or?
What's with you and the jokes and the puns?
Well, I know it's a serious question. I'm wondering, what's the USP of a miniskirt displaying Arbeit mein frei?
If you're asking why someone would even put that on a garment, I have no idea. I've been trying to figure that out myself.
Right, okay. No. I was just,
I don't know.
I mean, occasionally stuff does pass me by completely.
This is like when Zara had the striped pajamas with the Star of David on it. Where does this stuff? Who signs this stuff off?
By the way, the e-commerce site was called Rebubble.
Josh breaks an interesting point in the fact that I'm very curious to know if this is sold as a deliberately massively anti-Semitic horrible thing that you want to put in your house, like for super racists, or could someone actually be that stupid that they're pulling images off the internet and they have no idea what they are, and they decide that that gate looks good on a throw?
Yeah, I just think this was
I mean,
a
is
case
that possible?
This is a
Like,
case
I mean,
of
I'm so
accidental,
confused with it.
accidental stupidity. I want to believe that somehow this random image, somebody said, yeah, this one, and they said, we'll put it on a skirt. Fine.
I assume the site was highly embarrassed when they were.
Well, they took it down. I don't know if they're embarrassed. Or hey, wait, could this have been some perverse publicity stunt?
I don't think
For
so.
a brand? Really edgy brand?
Well, as I just said, even a mainstream brand like Zara has dropped clangers on this as well. The link had a couple of other examples of extraordinary.
I mean, like Che Guevara T-shirts, for example. Okay, no.
Oh, that's different.
Oh, yes. Sorry.
That's different. Digging to Che Guevara, he said and did some really nasty stuff, but that's a different special case. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's on the other side of things.
Why are you looking at me?
I thought you were about to say something about how an Auschwitz skirt could possibly make it to market. I don't know.
I just don't understand. I honestly don't understand how anyone could be that stupid. How this even happened, you know?
I'm convinced that, this is another example that I'm convinced that this is never going to end. The unintentional stupidity like this, the ignorant references to Polish death camps, very insensitive remarks around Auschwitz. This is never going to end.
It just shows how important the work, the historians, Auschwitz, the Advesham, the museums.
We live in a world, Dave. We live in a world where 21-year-old people are have a keyboard and they're given writing assignments for various online publications, and they know nothing.
It's important to work.
I got an interruption here because this is kind of this is like so many things, not at all new. I remember, God, and it must be like the early 1980s, maybe even prior to that. Audi, the car manufacturer, their advertising campaign, this slogan, which I think everybody knows by now, Vorsprung durch Technik. When they launched that campaign, I don't remember exactly what it was, say it was around 1980, the grief in the kind of the correct thinking British press about a slogan that carried alarming echoes of Nazi imagery and kind of, work making you free and strength through joy and, something through something, whatever Vorsprung durch Technik means. But it didn't stop Audi. They're still selling lots of cars. They still use the slogan.
That's what you're just saying, that people are quick to take offense where there is no offense meant?
Oh, I think there are people quick to look for offense and imagine,
But this is like just, I mean...
But this was a real thing. This was
It's the offensive. This is a cushion throw with fucking Auschwitz on it. I mean, slightly different things, no, Josh?
Yeah, no, you're right. That's one is kind of.
I get what you're saying. The Audi slogan had echoes, imagery attached to it, but this is more like
there's a difference between an overt message and a covert message. Yes, I'll grant you that. Yeah, all right.
Serious question: which is more unbelievable? The fact that anybody would put a graphic from Auschwitz on an article of clothing, or the fact that they chose a mini skirt for the medium? I just can't get over the mini skirt part.
Yeah.
I mean, T-shirt, bad enough. The miniskirt, who's their market for this exactly?
That's what makes me think, actually, it might have just been a really ridiculous mistake from somebody who's totally embarrassed by it. I don't know.
I wouldn't completely ignore the very misguided publicity stunt angle as well.
So you think the manufacturer of this skirt is now getting lots of orders?
I don't think no. But the e-commerce site, suddenly they check their stats on Google Trends.
Well, that's a cynical but interesting theory, actually. Yeah, because the name of the site is all over the place.
Get attention in a crowded e-commerce world.
I think for once on the KrakCast, we'll lean towards the better side of humanity, and we'll say that we hope that it's just people being absolutely pig ignorant.
Doubt.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's going to bring this episode of the KrakCast News to a close. There's what you need to know on the world of transport.
John speaking very, very slowly now, closing the show, because he's pretty damn sure Dave has got something up his sleeve.
Well, I'm just waiting for him to jump in any moment to say, what about this? What about that? That's what he does. Dave, we'll do it this way. We'll make it clear and easy. Anything to add before we close the show?
No.
Okay, wow. All right, I'm going to hold you to your word. Thanks for listening, everybody. Don't forget to give us a like on Facebook. Send us some messages. We love to get messages. Don't we love to get messages?
Yeah, we like messages.
Comments.
Oh, and
it's really cool. Did we do the guy, the executed communist guy? Anti-communist guy?
Yeah, You mean the one that we're saving for a separate show next week? That one?
Yeah. So a trailer for the.
We're going to do a show on Stanisław Pias.
Yes. And also we're thinking of doing a Vianki special. For all you Viankers out
big
there.
Fireworks show and stuff on the river. That's next month.
Viankers.
What? All right, any other interruptions or things to mention before we bring it to a close?
Tell our listeners roughly what Vianki is, John.
Vianki is a big fireworks show on the river. That's my.
What was your favourite? That wasn't a very vivid
fertility. It's another festival with roots.
It's very
middle
special
age fertility rituals
to a certain era of expat, because we remember the old. We always mark Vianki by the different acts that performed.
They used to have some semi-known musical acts on the stage. Yeah,
we had a great run 2 years in a row. Boney M followed by Jamiroquai. It was exceptional because for anyone who doesn't know what we're talking about or is new to the city, maybe we know some expats listen to the show that maybe have just moved here. Across the river from the castle, is it still there where the final show is? Yeah,
they're working. I saw it today. They were working on the foundations.
It's an incredible venue for a concert. It really is. If you get the right night, it is magic.
I mean, there's a curve in the river, so you've actually got it's sort of like a kilometre along the opposite bank where you can stand and see the stage. It's
and if the weather's right, it's just fantastic.
If the weather's right.
If the weather sucks, it's horrible. So.
How right we always are about how underused the river is as a geographical feature within the city centre. It's an amazingly picturesque and stunning scene when it's lit up.
But next month, and we're going to do a show. I'll go ahead and commit us to making a show about Vianki. Yeah, can I do that now? All right, there you go. Special inside information about upcoming episode of the KrakCast.
And we know our mailbag will be stuffed full of complaints if we don't do it. As every week we get.
Most importantly, our collective noun game, people. Okay, we want a collective noun for a bunch of Uber drivers sitting around outside a shopping centre.
I'm pretty sure that a single entry could win the main prize in this competition.
Could do. The prize, which is a shout out on the KrakCast.
Oh my God, priceless.
We might even get your name in there as well.
What was the second collective now? A lot of the abandoned scooters.
The scooters, abandoned scooters.
Yeah.
Right, okay. I insist on bringing this to a close. Thanks for listening, everybody. See you next week on the news.